Today we're going to create a basic experience where users will set the X and Y velocity of a hockey puck in an attempt to score a goal. The final product will look a little bit like this. You can create an experience just like this in just a couple minutes. So let's walk through the steps together. So first step is to log into home.phenomena.app. And once your account is approved, you will see a screen that looks a little bit like this. I'm going to create a new experience, and I'm going to call it hockey. And I'll say it's a physics experience. And you can enter some tags if you like. I think that's perfect. All right, so I'll hit the next button. All right, here is the creator tool. So first step, I'm going to add in a hockey puck graphic. So in this middle tab, this is the graphics library. You'll see these are images that come by default with the creator tool. So if you scroll down, you can see all these sports related images. So I'm going to drag and drop this hockey puck in there. Note, you can also search for graphics using this little search bar. And quick note, we also have the emoji library loaded into the creator tool. Those are only, you can only find those using the search bar though. But I think this is perfect. Great, so we have our hockey puck. So next thing I'm gonna do is I want to add in a little background for our hockey rink. So for that, I'm actually going to insert an SVG of my own. So quick note, images, we only allow SVG files to be uploaded. So no PNGs, no JPEGs. That's because SVGs are vector graphics and they can be resized infinitely, and they're just wonderful to work with. So I'm going to add in a background that I have in my file browser. Great. So I want to take, I want this image to take up the entire canvas. So little note about the canvas here. So this canvas is 1,000 by 1,000, regardless of what size the screen is or anything like that. So, and the origin of this canvas is the center. So at the center here, this is 0, 0. So in order for this image to be placed up here in the top left, we will want -500, -500. So I'm going to adjust the X and Y positions of our little image here, which you can see is selected. And you'll notice that this is not actually in the top left corner. That's because we need to change the origin of the image to top left. And there you can see this is perfectly aligned with the top left of the screen. So now, like I said, the Phenomena canvas is 1,000 by 1,000. So in order to take up the entire screen, you can just type in width 1,000, height 1,000, and there you go. Last thing I'll do is I will change the name of this graphic to BG for background. Great. So you'll notice that our hockey puck disappeared. That's because it is behind our background here. So in order to change the order in which objects disappear or appear on screen, I can just select my hockey puck and drag it above the background, and there we can see it's now above. Quick note about backgrounds. Backgrounds are a little bit tricky to work with if they take up the entire screen, and you'll often find yourself, if you try to select this hockey puck, for example, you might accidentally select the background. So the way to get around this is by locking the background. So there's this little property over here called locked. Now if I lock this background and select the hockey puck now, you can see that I can't click on the background or select the background from the canvas. So that is exactly what I want. So I can't move this around, but if I do want to select the background, I can just go over here on the left side in the objects pane and select it. Okay, great. So next thing I want to add, now that I've added our background, I am going to add a goal. So I'm going to insert another SVG, and I have a little goal graphic here. Okay, so I have my goal in place, and I'm going to rename this to be goal. Now what I want to do is I want to add sliders to make the velocity of this puck controllable. So the way you add sliders is in this create menu, create slider. And note you can create other controls too, like buttons, which we will use button in just a second, but also an arrow, switch, etc. So I'm going to create a slider, and I'm going to make the width of this slider just a little bit less. So I'm going to make this 300 pixels. Now, this name property of the slider, this is you can think of it as the ID of the object, the slider. This is the name that you'll reference in your code when you end up writing that. So I'm just going to call this x velocity, no spaces. Now, if I want to change the title, right now it says name, I can do so using the title property. So I'm going to call this x velocity. Wonderful. Okay, so now I'm just going to do the same thing again, except I'm going to make it a y velocity slider. And I'll make it 300 wide again. Y velocity. Okay, wonderful. So I have my two sliders now, and so next I'll add in a button, and this will be the button that I use to trigger the animation of the puck moving. So I got my button here. I'm going to change the title of this. I'm going to say let it fly, exclamation mark. Okay, wonderful. And I'm going to change the color of this button too, actually. So I'm going to make it stand out. So I'm going to make this a nice orange color, and you can change, if you notice, if you hover over the button, the hover color is a different color. So you can change that as well. So I'm going to make it a slightly lighter orange. Wonderful. Okay, so I have pretty much all the elements on screen that I'll need. So if I go ahead and run this, nothing happens. And this makes sense because we haven't told any of these objects on screen to do anything yet. Okay, so the way that we'll end up making all of this stuff interactive and actionable is through the code editor. So we are going to attach code to these objects. So let's get started. And first thing I want to do is something really basic. I want to make the puck move across the screen. All right, so let's jump into the code editor here, and you can see that this pane kind of expanded out so that you have some more space to write your code. So first step when writing code is to ask yourself, what do I want to do? So in this case, I want to make this puck move across the screen a little bit on each animation frame in the browser. So take a look at over here in this events dropdown. So events you can think of as blocks where code is run on certain conditions. So for example, this onload block, any code that is written in the onload block is going to be run only when the experience is first loaded. Okay, makes sense, right? On click, any code that is written here is going to only be run when the object is clicked. So in our case, we want to use the onFrame event, and this is going to run any code that's in this routine block on each animation frame of the browser. So browser animation frames, there's about 60 per second, roughly, give or take. So that's what we want to use. So on every animation frame, we want to move this puck just a little bit. So the way we're going to achieve that is by setting the X and Y position of this hockey puck to be 3 more in a certain direction on each frame. So let's do that. So what we're going to do is when you click in this routine block, you see a drop down of different options of code blocks that you can add. We're going to use this equal sign. So this is the assignment operator. So this is how you essentially give property values and variables new values. So we want to set the x position of this hockey puck to be 3 more, essentially 3 pixels to the right. So I'm going to select the x position property, and I want to add 3 pixels to this x position. So what I'm going to do is x position equals x position itself plus 3. Okay, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing for the y position. So a quick note about the y position. You may have noticed that the y direction is actually the opposite of what you might expect from a traditional mathematical coordinate system. It follows the convention of down being positive. So this is more in line with graphics programs. So that is one thing that might trip you up a little bit once you're getting used to the editor, but it's not too tricky once you figure it out. All right, so what is going to happen when I hit the play button? It moves across the screen, just as expected, okay? Wonderful. I'm going to save this real quick. So great. So we have this moving across the screen. Now what I want to do is I want to move this across the screen based on the values that are set in these sliders. So I want to be able to set the x velocity, essentially the distance or the amount that the puck travels in the x direction based on the value of this x velocity. So the way we can do that is instead of saying 3, I'm going to get rid of this. And instead, I'm going to add whatever the value of this x velocity slider is. So I'm going to check property. And in addition to being able to set the properties and reference the properties of the object itself that you're writing the code in, you can also reference the properties of objects outside, external objects, that is. So I'm going to look inside the x velocity. This is our slider, this one right here, and I'm going to find the value property. So this is what the slider value is. So on every frame, we are just going to add the value of the x velocity slider to our x position. And we're going to do the same thing for the y position, referencing the y velocity slider, its value. Okay, so if I press play, nothing happens, but that's to be expected because these sliders are both 0. So if I, oh, yep. If I move the sliders, it moves. Okay, great. So I think you noticed, though, a bit of a problem with our current design. The puck just zooms off the screen. So, and the other thing is that currently there's no way for the puck to go upward because there's no negative values that you can set the y velocity slider to. So we can solve both of these problems by setting the bounds or the domain of these sliders. So the way you do that is you select the slider, go back to the properties pane, and scroll down just a little bit, and you'll see these 2 properties, min and max. So instead of 100, in order to make it not zoom off the screen, I'm going to set this to max out at 10, this x velocity slider. Okay, so if you see that doesn't zoom off the screen anymore. Wonderful. And then what I'll do for the y velocity slider is I'll set the min to be -10 and the max to be 10. All right, and you can see it's working. All right, wonderful. So next step, what I'm going to do is I want this animation to only occur once I've pressed this button. So we want to set some sort of trigger that occurs once this button is pressed. So there's a couple ways to achieve this behavior. One of my favorite ways, though, is to use custom properties. So if I click on this puck here, I have all these properties that come default with this object, but I can also add a custom property of my own. So what I want to do is I want to add a property that's a flag that represents whether or not the puck is being animated or not. So I want a true false value. So I'm going to choose Boolean, and I'm going to add a property, and I'm going to rename this property. I'm going to double click, and I'll call this animating, and I'll hit enter to save that. And I want this to be false by default. So it's not going to be animating on by default, but I do want it to animate when I press this button. Okay, so I've created a custom property. Now I want to set that to be true whenever this button is clicked. So in the code editor for this button, I'm going to go into the onClick event. So when this button is clicked, I want to set that animating property to be true. So I'll use the equals assignment operator line, and I want to set a property, and I want to set the animating property, which exists in hockey puck, and there it is, animating, and I want to set that to be true. Great. So next step, I only want to move the hockey puck when this animating Boolean is true. So I'm going to go back into my hockey puck, and in the bit of code where we did our animation, this is the on-frame event of the hockey puck, I'm going to add what's called an if block. So an if block has a condition, and if that condition is true, it'll run the code inside of it. So I'm going to say if animating. So this is the property that we set to be true when this button is clicked. So if the animating property is true, I want to move the hockey puck. Okay, so it's not going to move whenever this property is false, this animating property, but it will run when it's true once this button is clicked. Okay, so nothing is happening as expected until I hit this button. Great, so it works wonderfully. I'm going to save this real quick. All right, next step. We want to know when the puck has gone in the goal. So there's a rather easy way to do this. So I'm going to go and click on my goal here. And in the code editor, in onFrame, I'm going to add an if block here. So basically I want to ask if the puck has collided with the goal, then I want to show some sort of celebration, whether that's like text that says you did it, or maybe a sticker or something else. I want that only to occur when the puck has collided with the goal. So what I'll do is in this condition block, I'm going to go into common function here, and there is a function in here called isIntersecting. So this asks if the puck has collided, or rather the goal has collided with another object. And we can give this function a name. So I'll hit string. String is just text. And I want to know if the goal has intersected with hockey puck. So I'm going to type in hockey puck, and this name has to match what's over here in the object pane exactly. So if these two have collided, then I want to do something. So I want to add in a sticker that says good job or something like that. So what I'll do is I'm going to add another SVG, and I'm going to add this little success sticker. How about that? And I want this sticker to be hidden by default, so it does not show just when playing the experience. But I do want to show this sticker when the puck collides with the goal. So back in our on frame, and it's important that this logic is in on frame because we want to check on every animation frame, has the puck collided with the goal yet? No? Okay. And on the next frame, has it collided yet? No? Well, maybe the next frame it does collide. So in here, I'm going to, if the goal intersects with hockey puck, I want to show that sticker. So I want to set the visible property of that sticker to be true. So property, and I'm going to select sticker, visible equals Boolean is how you get static values, true. All right, wonderful. So let's test it out. So if I just let the puck go and it doesn't go in the goal, does not show the sticker, but if the puck goes in the goal, look at that, sticker. Wonderful. And there you have it. There are a couple of refinements to spruce it up. One thing I could do is kind of fade in the sticker or make it spin in or something like that. I could make this let it fly button, if I hit it once, make it turn into a reset button. And the other thing I could do is I could, once this button is hit, lock these sliders so that you can't move them while it's animating. But I think this is a great start. So this is good enough for now, I think. So what I'm going to do, I'm happy with this experience. So I'm going to, first off, save it. And now I'm going to save project thumbnail. So this is just the little icon image that shows up when you view the experience from the experience browser. So if I just click this, it saves whatever is on the canvas as the image. Wonderful. So now if I just go back, and I understand it might be confusing. I have several experiences named hockey, but this is the one we just made. So if I want to add this experience to the creator camp, and I'm going to make it super clear by actually changing the title. I'll call this Hockey 2. So to add this to the creator camp tab, all you have to do is in edit experience, publish to creator camp, and you can see there it is, and I can view it and play it. And there you go. That is just a brief introduction to creating an experience using the Phenomena Creator tool.